Zaravex looked out from her observation vessel as the blue planet grew larger in her view screen. Earth was nothing special to her experienced eyes. The young Zilarian scout had visited 27 developing worlds in her short career. She had seen oceans that glowed purple at night and skies filled with floating islands. She had watched six-legged creatures build cities of crystal and observed gas beings communicate through color patterns. Earth, with its simple blue-green appearance, seemed ordinary by comparison. Her silver fingers danced across the control panel, activating her ship's cloaking system. The humans must not detect her. Her mission was clear: observe their behavior, record their development, and determine if they were ready for official contact. The High Council of Zeller had been monitoring Earth for centuries, but always from a distance. Zara was proud to be chosen for this closer study. "Begin atmospheric entry sequence," she said to her ship's computer. The vessel hummed in response. Zara leaned back in her chair, her large purple eyes blinking slowly. Her skin, which shifted between pale blue and soft lavender depending on the light, tingled with excitement. First-hand observation was always more thrilling than reading reports. The ship shuddered suddenly. Zara sat up straight, her third eyelid flicking across her eyes in alarm. "Warning. Cloaking system malfunction detected," the computer announced. In a calm voice. "Source?" Zara asked, her fingers already moving to check the readings. "Unknown interference from Earth's magnetic field. Cloaking failure imminent." Zara felt a rush of panic, but quickly controlled it. Panic led to poor decisions. Poor decisions led to mission failure. Divert power from non-essential systems to maintain cloaking. Insufficient. Atmospheric entry already in progress. Recommend immediate course correction to uninhabited landing zone. The ship shook more violently now. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Zara quickly reviewed her options. Aborting the mission would bring shame, but risking detection could violate the non-interference protocols. Computer, identify nearest uninhabited landing area suitable for repairs. A map appeared on her screen, highlighting a region labeled Oregon, United States. Rural area, low population density. "Landing coordinates accepted," Zara said, gripping the control sticks with both hands. The ship dived steeper, cutting through clouds as it lost altitude. The cloaking system failed completely with a shower of sparks from an overhead panel. Warning. Multiple systems failing. Prepare for emergency landing. Rain started hitting the view screen as the ship broke through the cloud layer. Zara saw green fields, scattered forests, and rolling hills below. Her hands stayed steady on the controls, even as her heart beat rapidly in her chest. She guided the damaged vessel toward a clearing between two forested areas. The impact was harder than she would have liked. The ship skidded across wet grass, digging a deep trench in the earth before coming to rest at the edge of a small wooded area. Zara was thrown forward, then back against her seat. Emergency systems deployed, surrounding her with a protective shell that hardened and then dissolved as the ship settled. "Damage assessment," she croaked, tasting the metallic flavor of her own blood where she had bitten her tongue. "Life support functional. Navigation offline. Communications damaged but operational. Propulsion systems offline. Hull integrity at 67%. Zara closed her eyes briefly. This was bad, very bad. The ship needed repairs she couldn't perform alone. She activated the emergency beacon, knowing it would take weeks for a rescue vessel to reach her. Until then, she was stranded on a planet of primitives who would likely dissect her if they found her. Computer, analyze local conditions outside the ship. Atmosphere breathable, but contains higher oxygen levels than recommended for Zilarian physiology. Temperature within acceptable parameters. Precipitation occurring. Local time is early evening. Zara gathered emergency supplies and her observation tools. At minimum, she could continue her mission while waiting for rescue. She pulled on a protective suit that would help filter the oxygen-rich air and shield her from the worst of Earth's bacteria and viruses. Her translator implant would handle the language barrier if she encountered humans, though she hoped to avoid that entirely. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. Cool, damp air rushed in, carrying the unfamiliar sense of Earth. Zara took a cautious step outside. Rain fell steadily from a darkening sky. She had never felt rain directly before. It pattered against her protective suit in a strangely pleasant rhythm. She surveyed the damage to her ship. The once sleek silver vessel was now partially buried in mud, its hull scraped and vented. One engine housing was completely crushed. Without proper tools and parts, repairs were impossible. A strange sound made her turn quickly. Her hand moved to the stunner at her belt. Through the rain, she saw a figure approaching from across the field. A human. Zara froze. Her mission protocols were clear. Avoid direct contact unless absolutely necessary. But she was exposed. Her ship was damaged, and there was nowhere to hide. The human came closer. Zara's implant analyzed and translated the visual data. Male, adult, carrying some kind of covering over his head that kept the rain off. Wearing simple clothing, jeans, and flannel shirt, according to her database. He stopped about 10 meters away, staring at her and the ship. Zara remained perfectly still, her hand still on her stunner. Her translator implant beeped softly, indicating it was ready to process human speech. The man took another step forward, then stopped again. He was holding something in his free hand. Some kind of weapon? Zara tensed. "Hey there," the man called out, his voice carrying through the rain. "You look like you could use some help." Zara's implant translated his words perfectly. She remained silent, evaluating the threat level. The man didn't appear aggressive. In fact, based on her training about human facial expressions, he appeared concerned. "My name's Ethan. Ethan Miller," he continued when she didn't respond. "That's quite a crash you had. Are you hurt?" Zara's training had never covered what to do if a human's first reaction was concern rather than fear or aggression. She slowly removed her hand from her stunner. "I am functional," she replied, allowing her implant to translate her words into English. The man, Ethan, nodded slowly. He moved closer, and Zara could now see he was holding not a weapon, but some kind of food item. An apple, her database supplied. "You're getting soaked out here," Ethan said, gesturing to the sky. "I've got a place just over that hill. Dry, warm, safe from prying eyes, if that's important to you." Zara blinked all 3 of her eyelids in succession, a sign of confusion in her species. This human was offering shelter? Without demands? Without calling their authorities? "Why would you help me?" she asked. Ethan shrugged, a very human gesture that her implant interpreted as casual acceptance. Then he did something even more unexpected. He stepped forward and held out the object he was carrying over his head. An umbrella, her database now informed her. "Because you need it," he said simply, holding the umbrella so that it shielded her from the rain as well. "And because that's what people do, or at least what they should do." Zara stood speechless beneath the umbrella. In all her observations of developing worlds, in all the reports she had studied, in all the scenarios she had trained for, nothing had prepared her for this simple act of kindness from a complete stranger who had just witnessed an alien spacecraft crash on his planet. Zaravex walked beside Ethan Miller across the wet field. Rain pattered against the umbrella above them. Every step she took went against her training. Never make contact. Never reveal yourself. Never trust a developing species. Yet here she was, following a human to his dwelling. "It's not much," Ethan said as they crested a small hill. Below them sat a 2-story farmhouse, painted white with dark green trim. A red barn stood nearby, and a few animals moved in a fenced area. But it's dry and warm. Zara studied the structure. Her database classified it as a traditional American farmhouse, likely pre-1950s construction. Nothing special by human standards, yet to her, it represented an enormous risk. "There are no other humans present?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "Just me and Max. That's my dog. He's friendly, don't worry." Dog, canine companion animal, domesticated Earth predator. Zara added another concern to her growing list. They reached the house. Ethan opened the door and stood aside to let her. Enter first. Another surprise. On her world, the higher-ranked person always entered a space first. Was this human considering her his superior? Or was this another cultural difference her training had not covered? The inside of the house was simple but comfortable. Wooden floors. Fabric-covered seating. A heating element disguised as an artificial fire. Plants growing in containers. Pictures on walls. All of it was technologically primitive, but arranged with clear care. A furry creature bounded into the room. It stopped when it saw Zara, its head tilted to one side. "That's Max, Ethan." Sighed. "Max, be nice." The dog approached slowly, sniffing the air. Zara tensed, prepared to defend herself if needed. Instead, the animal sat at her feet and looked up at her with dark eyes. "He likes you," Ethan said, sounding pleased. "He's usually good at judging character." Zara looked down at the dog, then at Ethan. "You are not afraid of me," she stated. Ethan hung his wet jacket on a hook by the door. "Should I be? I am not human." "Yeah, I noticed that." He smiled slightly. The purple eyes, blue skin, and spaceship were pretty big clues. Most humans would react with fear, or aggression, or call their authorities. Ethan shrugged. "Probably. I'm not most humans." He walked to another room. "You hungry?" "I was about to make dinner when I saw your ship crash." Zara remained standing where she was, confused by this human's behavior. He was treating her arrival like a normal event. Like having an alien in his home was an everyday occurrence. "My name is Zaravex," she said finally. "I am a scout from the planet Zeller." "Nice to meet you, Zara," Ethan called from what she now identified as a kitchen. "Hope you like vegetable soup." "It's what I've got ready." Zara followed him to the kitchen. She watched as he stirred a pot on a heating device. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan looked up. "You crashed. You need help. I've got room." "Doesn't matter where you're from. That is not logical." "Never claimed to be logical." He smiled again. "So your ship, can it be fixed?" Zara considered how much to reveal. But this human had already seen her craft. "It requires parts I do not have. I have sent a signal to my people, but rescue will take at least 3 of your Earth weeks to arrive." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then you need a place to stay for 3 weeks. You're welcome here." Zara blinked all 3 of her eyelids in succession. "You would allow this? Without knowing anything about me or my purpose here? I know you haven't tried to hurt me or Max. That's a good start." He poured the soup into 2 bowls. "Can you eat Earth food? My protective suit contains an analyzer. It will tell me what is safe." They sat at a small wooden table. Zara's suit beeped softly after scanning the soup. "This is compatible with my biology," she said, surprised. She removed her breathing filter to eat. "Lucky break," Ethan said. He watched as she tasted the soup. "Good?" The flavor was strange, but not unpleasant. "Yes, thank you." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Zara studied Ethan when he wasn't looking at her. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, based on her knowledge of human aging. His hands were rough, showing signs of physical labor. His home was clean but worn. He lived simply. "Your dwelling is far from other humans," she observed. "I like my privacy." Ethan looked up at her. "Which is probably good for you right now." "Yes." Zara hesitated. "My mission was to observe humans without making contact. I have failed." "What were you supposed to observe?" "Your behaviors, your development, your readiness for official contact with other civilizations." Ethan seemed to consider this. "And what have you observed so far?" "That humans are unpredictable." She set down her spoon. "You should have run when you saw me, or called your military. Instead, you offered shelter and food. Would your people have done differently if our situations were reversed?" Zara thought about this. "Yes, we would have followed protocols, contacted authorities, kept a safe distance." "Sounds lonely," Ethan said. This response confused Zara. "It is efficient, safe, but lonely," Ethan repeated. He stood and took their empty bowls to a washing basin. "I'll show you where you can sleep." He led her upstairs to a small room with a bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the fields and distant woods where her ship had crashed. Bathrooms across the hall. "There are clean towels in the closet there." He paused at the doorway. "I need to check on my animals before it gets too dark. Make yourself at home." After he left, Zara examined the room more closely. The bed was covered with a handmade quilt. The dresser held old photographs. One showed a younger Ethan with an older couple, likely his parents. Another showed him with a woman, both smiling. She wondered where these people were now. From the window, she could see Ethan walking to the barn, hunched against the rain. Max ran circles around him, seemingly unbothered by the weather. Zara watched as Ethan checked each animal, patting them, speaking to them. He showed the same care to these creatures that he had shown to her. Zara activated her recording device. Day 1 on Earth. Emergency landing occurred. Ship damaged beyond immediate repair. Have made contact with a human named Ethan Miller. Contrary to all expected behavior patterns, he has offered shelter without conditions. Subject appears to live alone and values privacy. He has shown no fear or hostility. Initial assessment. Unusual for his species based on previous monitoring data. She paused, watching as Ethan closed the barn door and headed back to the house through the rain. The subject's behavior challenges our assumptions about human development. Despite their technological limitations, they may possess social and empathic capabilities that exceed our models. Further observation required. Zara deactivated the recorder and continued watching out the window. The rain was falling harder now. The forest where her ship lay damaged was barely visible in the gathering darkness. For the first time since her crash, she felt a sense of security. This feeling was entirely unexpected. By all logic, she should feel vulnerable, trapped on a primitive planet, dependent on the goodwill of a species known for their unpredictable nature. Yet this human, with his simple kindness and lack of fear, had created a safe space for her. As Ethan and Max returned to the house, Zara realized that nothing in her extensive training had prepared her for this situation. She had been taught how to evade hostile humans, how to defend against attacks, how to maintain secrecy. She had not been taught what to do when a human simply offered help with no expectations in return. She had seen much in her career as a scout, but this simple act of kindness from a species her people considered primitive had left her speechless. A week passed. Zaravex adapted to life in Ethan Miller's farmhouse more easily than she expected. Each morning, she woke to the sound of Ethan moving around downstairs, preparing for his day of farm work. Each evening, they shared a meal and talked about their different worlds. Today, Zara sat on the front porch, watching as Ethan worked in his vegetable garden. Her protective suit had adjusted its settings to allow her to breathe the earth air for short periods. The oxygen was still too rich for comfort, but she could manage an hour at a time. Max lay at her feet, his tail thumping against the wooden boards whenever she looked down at him. The dog had appointed himself her guardian, following her everywhere. When Ethan was busy, "Your tomatoes need water," Zara called out, using her scanner to check the soil moisture levels. Ethan looked up and smiled. "Thanks. I'll set up the sprinkler later." He wiped sweat from his forehead. "How's the air today?" "Better. My body is slowly adjusting." She didn't tell him about the headaches or the way her lungs burned after 2. Much exposure. He would worry, and she didn't want that. A vehicle approached on the dirt road leading to the farmhouse. Zara tensed. No one had visited during her stay. Ethan had told neighbors he was busy with projects and couldn't socialize. "Get inside," Ethan said quickly, standing up. "It's Sheriff Powell." Zara hurried into the house, Max following close behind. She watched through the window as a white car with blue markings stopped in front of the farmhouse. A woman in a uniform stepped out. "Morning, Ethan," the sheriff said. Her voice carried clearly through the open window. "Been a while since we've seen you in town." "Been busy," Ethan replied, walking toward her. "Spring planting and all that." Sheriff Powell nodded. "Got some reports about strange lights in the sky last week. Anything unusual happen out this way?" Zara held her breath. Ethan shrugged. "Nothing I noticed. But I turn in pretty early most nights. Mind if I take a look around?" Some folks thought whatever it was might have come down near your property. Ethan hesitated only a moment. "Sure, but I need to finish watering these plants first. The heat's been rough on them." As Ethan led the sheriff away from the house toward the fields, Zara retreated upstairs. Her heart beat rapidly in her chest. Discovery would mean disaster for her mission, for her career, and possibly for Ethan. Harboring an alien might be against human laws. She didn't know, and didn't want to find out. She waited anxiously, watching through the upstairs window as Ethan walked with the sheriff along the edge of his property. He was carefully guiding her away from the wooded area where her ship had crashed. After what seemed like a very long time, the sheriff returned to her vehicle and drove away. When Ethan came back inside, he looked worried. She didn't find anything. But she'd be back. Someone reported seeing lights in the sky the night you crashed. "I should leave," Zara said. "My presence puts you at risk." Ethan shook his head. "Where would you go? Your ship isn't fixed, and you can't breathe our air. For long periods yet, I could hide in the ship. It has emergency life support. And if they find it? No, you're safer here." Ethan sat down heavily on a chair. "But we need help." "Help? From other humans?" The idea alarmed Zara. "Just one. My friend Susan? She's a doctor. Used to work for NASA. If anyone would understand." "It's her." Zara paced the small living room. "My mission protocols strictly forbid wider contact." "Your mission protocols didn't account for a crash landing, did they?" Ethan pointed out. "Besides, you're having trouble breathing. I've noticed, even if you think I haven't." Zara stopped pacing. He was right. Her condition was worsening. "They." Protective suit could only filter so much oxygen from the air. Her lungs were not designed for Earth's atmosphere. "Very well," she agreed reluctantly, "but only this one human." Ethan called Susan Reyes that evening. He spoke carefully, saying only that he had a visitor with unusual medical needs. Susan promised to come the next morning. Zara barely slept that night. She reviewed everything she knew about human medical practices. Primitive, invasive, perhaps better than slowly suffocating. Susan arrived early. She was a small woman with gray-streaked black hair and sharp eyes. When Ethan brought her into the living room where Zara waited, she stopped in the doorway and stared. "Well," she said finally, "when you said unusual, you weren't kidding." "This is Zara," Ethan said. She crashed her ship in the woods last week. Susan set her medical bag on the table. An actual extraterrestrial. I always believed, but seeing is something else. She looked at Zara with intense curiosity, but no fear. What's the medical issue? Her species doesn't do well with our oxygen levels, Ethan explained. Susan nodded. May I? She asked Zara, gesturing to her scanner. Zara allowed the human doctor to examine her. Susan was gentle but thorough, asking questions about Zilarian physiology that Zara answered as best she could. Your blood oxygen saturation is too high for your system, Susan concluded. I can create a breathing mixture with lower oxygen content. It won't be perfect without knowing more about your home atmosphere, but it should help. You would do this? Zara asked. Why? Susan smiled slightly. Professional curiosity, partly. How many doctors get to treat an alien? But mostly because Ethan asked. He's good people. While Susan worked, mixing gases from tanks she brought from her car, Zara observed the interaction between the two humans. They moved comfortably around each other, speaking in half sentences that somehow conveyed full meaning. Old friends with shared history. There was a meteor shower last week, Susan said as she adjusted a mask attached to a small tank. That's probably what people saw, not your ship. Sheriff Powell doesn't think so, Ethan replied. Diane always was thorough. Here, try this, Susan said, handing the mask to Zara. The air that flowed through the mask when Zara tried it was cool and less oxygen-rich. Her lungs expanded more easily. The constant burning sensation eased. Better? Susan asked. Zara nodded. Yes, thank you. I'll bring more tanks tomorrow. And maybe Kyle can help with your ship. Kyle? Zara looked at Ethan. Mechanical engineer. Good with weird tech, and he can keep a secret. Ethan looked uncertain. If that's okay with you? Zara hesitated. More humans meant more risk of discovery, but also more help. And these humans seemed different from what her training had led her to expect. They were curious, but not fearful. Helpful without demanding. Anything in return. Yes, she decided. That would be acceptable. Susan left with promises to return the next day. When she was gone, Zara turned to Ethan. Your friend did not seem surprised by my existence. Susan's always believed in life on other planets. Said the universe is too big for us to be alone. Ethan smiled. Guess she was right. On my world, knowledge is carefully controlled. New discoveries must go through proper channels. Your people share information freely. Not all of us, but my friends? Yeah, we trust each other. Trust. Such a simple word for such a complex concept. On Zeller, systems were trusted, not individuals. Rules were trusted, not personal judgment. Yet these humans built their entire society on trusting each other, despite their differences and flaws. As Zara breathed more easily thanks to Susan's help, she wondered what else she might learn from these strange, kind beings who accepted an alien into their lives without hesitation. Her mission to observe humans was yielding results far different from what she had expected. And that, perhaps, was the most valuable data of all. 2 weeks had passed since Zaravex crashed on Earth. What began as one human helping her had grown into a small group. Susan Reyes visited daily, bringing breathing tanks and checking Zara's health. Kyle Jenkins, a mechanical engineer with careful hands and endless questions, spent hours studying her damaged ship. Grace Howard, a retired language professor who lived nearby, was fascinated by Zara's translator implant and the structure of the Zilarian language. Today, they all gathered in Ethan's barn, which had become their meeting place. Ethan had cleared farm equipment from one side, making space for a workbench, where Kyle spread out diagrams of Zara's ship systems. The propulsion unit is unlike anything I've seen, Kyle said, pushing his glasses up his nose. But I think understand the basic principles now." Zara watched him with growing respect. For a human working with technology centuries beyond his understanding, Kyle was making remarkable progress. "How long until it can fly?" Susan asked, adjusting the mix. In Zara's breathing tank, Kyle scratched his head. "The damage is extensive. With Earth materials? Maybe another month, if we're lucky." A month. Zara felt her heart sink. By then, a rescue ship from Zeller would have arrived. It would find her living among humans, breaking every protocol people had established for contact with developing worlds. "My people will be here before then," she said. "In approximately 5 of your Earth days." The humans exchanged glances. "What will happen when they arrive?" Grace asked. Her white hair was tied back in a neat bun, and she held a notebook where she had been recording Zellerian phrases Zara taught her. "They will extract me and my ship. They will erase all evidence of my presence here." Zara hesitated. "They may also erase your memories of me." The room fell silent. Ethan's expression darkened. "They can do that?" "Yes, it is standard procedure for unauthorized contact." "That's not right," Ethan said firmly. "You can't just come into people's minds and take their memories." Zara had never questioned this practice before. It was efficient, clean, but looking. At these humans who had helped her, she suddenly saw it differently. "I am sorry. I did not make these rules." "Can you contact them?" Susan asked. "Tell them we're helping voluntarily?" "The communication system on my ship is for emergency signals only. I cannot send complex messages." Kyle tapped a pencil against the workbench. "What if we fixed that part first?" The communication array looked less damaged than the engines. Hope flickered briefly in Zara. Perhaps. But even if I could speak to them, my superiors would still follow protocols. "We'll figure something out," Ethan said, with that strange human confidence that seemed to ignore impossible odds. They worked late into the evening. Kyle focused on the ship's communication system. Grace helped Zara translate a message that might convince her superiors to spare her human friends' memories. Susan monitored Zara's health as she worked longer hours than was safe for her alien physiology. As darkness fell, they gathered on Ethan's porch. The night air was cool, and stars filled the clear sky. Somewhere up there, Zara knew, a Zellerian ship was approaching. "I've been thinking," Susan said, looking up at the stars. "Your people have been watching Earth for centuries, right?" Zara nodded. "Yes, we have monitored your development from a distance, but they've never actually met us, not face to face." "No, direct contact is only permitted with species that meet certain criteria." "And we don't meet those criteria?" "Ethan asked. Zara hesitated. "Your technology is considered primitive. Your societies are fragmented. Your history shows tendencies toward violence." "That's not the whole story," Grace said quietly. "Those are just the easy things to see from a distance." "What would change their minds?" Kyle asked. "What would make them see humans differently?" Zara had no answer. She had asked herself this question many times over the past 2 weeks. Her own view of humans had changed dramatically. But how could she make her superiors understand? They were interrupted by Max barking loudly from inside the house. A moment later, the dog burst through the screen door and ran into the yard, still barking. "What is it, boy?" Ethan stood up, peering into the darkness. A bright light appeared in the sky, moving fast. Too fast for a human aircraft. Zara felt her heart's race. "They are early," she whispered. The light grew larger, descending toward the field beyond Ethan's property. The humans watched in amazement as a ship much larger than Zara's settled onto the ground, glowing softly in the darkness. "Is that your rescue team?" Susan asked, her voice hushed. "Yes, an extraction unit." Zara stood up. "I must go to them." Ethan put a hand on her arm. Wait, what about our plan? The message? There is no time. Zara looked at each of her human friends. Thank you for your help, for your kindness. I will try to protect you. She walked down the port steps. The humans followed her across the field toward the waiting ship. Max ran ahead, barking at the strange vessel. A door opened in the side of the ship. 3 tall figures emerged, dressed in sleek silver suits similar to the one Zara had worn when she first arrived. They carried equipment that Zara knew included memory erasure devices. Scout Zaravex, one of the figures called out. You have violated contact protocols. Commander, Zara replied, stopping several meters from the ship. These humans have helped me survive. They have tried to repair my ship. They pose no threat. The commander looked past her at the 4 humans standing a short distance away. Unauthorized. Contact requires standard memory adjustment procedures. No, Zara said firmly. The word surprised even her. No one said no to a commander. The 3 Zilarians stared at her. Explain, the commander said. These humans deserve to remember. They have shown me aspects of their species that are distant. Observations have missed. They are kind, generous. They help without expecting reward. They solve problems in ways we would never consider. Zara took a deep breath of Earth's too rich air. I request special dispensation to preserve their memories. The commander stepped forward. Your judgment has been compromised by prolonged contact. My judgment has been enhanced by direct experience, Zara countered. Our protocols are based on incomplete data. The humans remained silent, watching this exchange they could not understand. Only Ethan moved, stepping forward to stand beside Zara. This one, Zara said, gesturing to Ethan, found me injured and offered shelter without hesitation. On Zeller, would we do the same for a strange being from another world? The commander was silent for a long moment. Then he activated a scanner and aimed it at the humans. We will evaluate their brain patterns for aggression markers. You won't find any, Zara said confidently. Not toward me. The scanner hummed. The commander studied the readings, then showed them to his companions. They conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, the commander turned back to Zara. Your situation is unprecedented. I will consult with the High Council before proceeding. He looked at the humans again. Until then, these specimens will remain unaltered. It was a small victory, but Zara felt relief wash over her. She had bought time at least. Time to convince her people that these humans were worthy of being remembered, not erased. Dawn broke over Ethan's farm. The Zilarian ship gleamed in the early morning light, a silver disk resting in the field. Commander Vellner and his extraction team had spent the night conferring with the High Council on Ziller, while Zara and her human friends waited anxiously in Ethan's house. They have reached a decision, Zara said, looking out the window. She could sense the subtle changes in the ship's energy field that indicated completed communications. What will they do? Susan asked. She sat at the kitchen table beside Grace. And Kyle. All 3 looked tired after the sleepless night. I do not know. Zara turned to face them. But I will continue to speak for you. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll speak for ourselves, too. They walked together across the field. Max trotted beside them, no longer barking at the alien ship. The morning air was cool and damp with dew. Birds sang in the trees, seemingly unbothered by the spacecraft in their midst. Commander Vellner emerged from the ship as they approached. 2 other Zilarians flanked him, carrying equipment Zara recognized as data collectors, not memory erasers. A small victory. The High Council has reviewed your situation, Vellner announced. They are concerned about the level of contact, but intrigued by your reports on human behavior. And their decision? Zara asked. Before any decision is made, they wish to observe these humans directly. Vellner gestured to the data collectors. We will record their responses to a hypothetical scenario. What scenario? Ethan asked. Zara translated for him. Vellner looked at Ethan with clinical interest. We have detected an approaching meteorite on a collision course with this region. It is small by cosmic standards, but large enough to destroy this farm and the nearby settlement. It will impact in approximately 6 hours. What? Susan stepped forward. Is there anything you can do? To stop it? Zara translated her question, then Vellner's response. We have the technology to deflect it. However, our protocols forbid interference in natural events on developing worlds. That's insane, Kyle said when Zara translated. You just let it hit us when you could prevent it? Many species would ask us to save them, Vellner replied through Zara. This is expected. What is your solution to this threat? The humans exchanged glances. Ethan spoke first. How many people live in the path of this meteor? The small town and surrounding farms. Approximately 2,000 humans. We need to evacuate them, Ethan said immediately. Kyle, what's the fastest way to alert everyone? Kyle thought for a moment. The town has an emergency siren system. If we could activate that and then use the local radio station to broadcast instructions. I can call Sheriff Powell, Susan added. She can coordinate emergency services. We need somewhere for people to go, Grace pointed out. The community center and school could serve as temporary shelters. Zara watched in amazement as they quickly formed a plan, each contributing ideas based on their knowledge and skills. There was no panic, no begging the aliens for help. Just rapid, practical problem-solving, focused on saving as many lives as possible. You have not asked what will happen to your ship, Vellner observed, addressing Zara but looking at the humans. Or the technology aboard it. Zara translated this observation. Ethan looked confused. Your ship? Would it be destroyed too? Yes, Zara confirmed. It remains in the impact zone. Kyle's eyes widened. All that advanced technology, lost. That doesn't matter right now, Ethan said firmly. People's lives come first. We can figure out the rest later. Vellner observed this exchange with great interest. He spoke to his companions in the Zilarian language, too quickly for Zara to translate perfectly. But she caught phrases about priority assessment and unexpected value structures. Enough, Vellner said finally. There is no meteorite. This was a test. When Zara translated this, the humans' reactions varied from relief to anger. A test? Susan's voice was sharp. You frightened us on purpose? Yes, Vellner admitted through Zara. We needed to observe your natural responses to crisis. Most developing species, when told of such a threat, immediately beg for technological salvation or try to seize advanced technology for themselves. We're not children, Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. We don't expect others to solve our problems. Vellner studied him. Your response focused entirely on saving lives, with no consideration for technology or personal gain. This is not unusual. It's human, Grace said simply. Vellner conferred again with his team. After several minutes, he turned back to address them all. The High Council has reached a decision. Scout Zaravex will return with us as scheduled. Her ship will be recovered, and all physical evidence of our presence removed. Zara's heart sank. She had hoped for more. However, Vellner continued, based on your responses and Zara's testimony, the memory erasure protocol will be waived in this case. You may retain your knowledge of our existence. The humans smiled, looking at each other with relief. But Vellner wasn't finished. Furthermore, based on this encounter, the classification of Earth will be upgraded. Your species has demonstrated empathic and cooperative capabilities beyond what our distant observations indicated. Official contact will be reconsidered within the next 50 Earth years, rather than the previously estimated 200. When Zara translated this, the humans seemed more surprised than excited. 50 years is still a long time, Kyle noted. For a species that has existed for millions of years, it is a moment, Velder replied through Zara. Be patient. Use this time wisely. We will, Ethan promised. Velder nodded. Scout Zaravex, prepare for departure. We leave in 1 hour. As the commander returned to the ship, Zara turned to her human friends. For once, her extensive language training failed her. What could she possibly say to these beings who had changed her understanding of what intelligence and civilization truly meant? I must go, she said finally. My place is with my people. We understand, Susan said, though her eyes were sad. Before you go, Ethan said, come back to the house. There's something I want to give you. They walked back together for the last time. In the kitchen, Ethan took a small wooden box from a shelf. Inside was a carved wooden figure, a simple representation of a human and an alien standing together. I made this last week, he said, as Zara held it carefully. So you wouldn't forget us. I could never forget, Zara said. She looked at each of them. My people believe we are advanced because of our technology, our order, our logic. But you have shown me something we lost long ago in our pursuit of perfection. What's that? Grace asked. The simple courage to help a stranger without calculating the benefit. The wisdom to value compassion over protocol. Zara clutched the carving. In some ways, you are more advanced than we are. She walked with them back to the waiting ship. As she prepared to board, Zara turned for one last look at the group of humans who had taken in an alien without fear or judgment. They stood together in the morning sunlight. Ethan, Susan, Kyle, Grace, and even Max sitting loyally at their feet. Zara had seen wonders across the galaxy. She had witnessed binary star systems and worlds with rings of crystal. She had studied species with telepathic abilities and civilizations that had conquered aging. But nothing in all her travels had left her as speechless as these simple humans and their extraordinary capacity for kindness. As the ship rose into the blue Earth sky, Zara made a silent promise. She would tell her people the truth about humans, not just their wars and their divisions, which were easy to see from a distance, but their courage and compassion, which could only be discovered up close. And perhaps, one day, both species would be better for knowing each other.